On the morning of November 29th, 1943, 19-year-old Staff Sergeant Eugene Moran climbed into the tail of a B-17 bomber named Ricky Tiki Tavi. It was his fifth mission with the 8th Air Force's 96th Bomb Group. The aircraft took off from RAF Snetterton Heath, England, as part of a massive operation, 346 B-17 flying fortresses heading toward the heavily defended industrial city of Bremen, Germany. The odds were steep. Bremen's anti-aircraft defenses had already destroyed 64 bombers in the prior month, and tail gunners like Moran had suffered devastating losses. At 23,000 feet over the German coast, Moran scanned the sky from his isolated tail position. His dual .50 caliber machine guns were his only companions in that lonely post. Soon the formation came under attack. German Messerschmitt Bf-109s, armed with 20mm cannons, swooped in from above. Moran opened fire on an enemy aircraft closing from behind and saw it trail smoke as it broke off. But the flak soon followed, explosions of steel and fire tearing through the sky at 3,000 feet per second. Ricky Tiki Tavi was hit hard. The nose of the aircraft was obliterated in an instant, killing the bombardier, navigator, and pilots. More shells struck the waist and radio sections. 8 of the 10 crew members died within minutes. The only survivors were Moran in the tail and the navigator, who managed to bail out. Moran reached for his parachute, only to find it shredded, its straps torn and canopy riddled with bullet holes. He had no way to escape. Then came the final catastrophic blow. A direct hit from flak severed the tail section from the aircraft. Suddenly, Moran was falling, trapped inside the tail 20,000 feet above Germany with no parachute. But the tail didn't plunge straight down. The horizontal and vertical stabilizers acted like crude wings, slowing the descent into a spiraling glide. German fighters, assuming no one could have survived, ignored the falling wreckage until one pilot got too close and was startled by gunfire. Moran, still gripping the machine gun handles, returned fire from the air, even as he fell. The German flak gunners below, however, noticed the falling tail section and opened fire again. The altimeter still worked. Moran watched the altitude drop, 19,000, 18,000 feet. At 14,000 feet, he spotted the town of Syke, south of Bremen. The escape hatch was jammed, warped from the blast. The spinning intensified. Blood filled his eyes. His ribs cracked against the metal. Teeth came loose. But still, he held on. At 1,000 feet, the pine trees of northern Germany rose up to meet him. The tail section crashed into the canopy. Branches shattered. The tail cartwheeled through the forest, finally slamming into the ground. The impact broke Moran's forearms, refractured his ribs, and cracked his skull. He was covered in blood, unable to move. But he was alive. Help came from the unlikeliest of places. 2 Serbian doctors, prisoners of war forced into labor by the Germans, had seen the crash. Rushing through the forest, expecting to find a corpse, they found Moran barely breathing. With no supplies but their knowledge and compassion, they stopped the bleeding, braced his arms with shirt rags, and stabilized him. German troops arrived moments later and, recognizing Moran's condition, carried him to a military hospital in Bremen, the very city he had been bombing hours earlier. Doctors assessed Moran's injuries as fatal: massive blood loss, broken bones, internal damage. Yet, thanks to the persistence of the Serbian doctors, he survived. 4 days he drifted in and out of consciousness, often dreaming of the fall, the sky spinning endlessly around him. Despite repeated interrogations by German intelligence officers, Moran gave nothing but his name, rank, and serial number. On December 14th, Moran was transferred east to Stalag Luft III, a prisoner of war camp that would later become infamous for the Great Escape. He arrived there 3 days later, broken in body and spirit. His dog tags and personal items were confiscated. His arms, poorly treated, began healing at incorrect angles. Fellow prisoners helped him dress, eat, and navigate daily life. That winter was brutal. Temperatures dropped to -10 degrees Fahrenheit. Food was scarce. Morning rations were a slice of black bread and ersatz coffee. The evening meal, a watery soup. Red Cross parcels were routinely stolen by the guards. Yet despite these hardships, morale flickered. The prisoners built a hidden radio, which they used to follow the war's progress. They cheered quietly when they heard about D-Day in June 1944 and the Russian advance from the east later that year. In January 1945, with Soviet troops approaching, the German guards forced 10,000 prisoners, Moran among them, on a westward march through snow and sub-zero temperatures. They had no food, no medical aid, and no destination. The rules were simple: keep walking or be shot. The first prisoner died on the second day. By the third day, several more. Within weeks, over 70 prisoners had perished. Moran's feet blistered, then became infected. Yet he walked step by agonizing step for 600 miles. On March 15th, the survivors reached Bitterfeld, where they were herded into an abandoned factory. There, in filth and starvation, they waited. Guards brought no food. Prisoners caught rats to eat. Dysentery spread. Many gave up hope. On April 11, 1945, American troops from the 104th Infantry Division liberated the factory. What they found shocked them. Hundreds of skeletal men lying in their own waste. Moran, weighing under 100 pounds and suffering from gangrene, was barely alive. He was rushed to a field hospital, then to a larger facility in France. Over the next few months, he slowly recovered. His feet were saved from amputation. His weight returned. His arms regained partial use. On July 3rd, Moran boarded a hospital ship bound for New York. He arrived home on July 11th, nearly 3 years after leaving for war. He stood on deck as the Statue of Liberty came into view and wept. The Army discharged him with honors in December 1945. He had survived 5 combat missions, a 20,000-foot fall, 17 months as a prisoner, and a brutal death march. He returned to his family's farm in Wisconsin, broken but alive. In 1947, he married a woman named Helen and eventually had 9 children. He worked construction jobs, never complained, and rarely spoke of the war. His physical injuries remained, as did the nightmares. For decades, Moran's story was largely unknown. Then in 2007, a local newspaper wrote about the tail gunner who survived the impossible. The article reached John Armster, a military historian who traveled to Wisconsin to meet Moran over 3 days. Armster recorded every detail. He later verified the crash site in Psych, interviewed German witnesses, and published the book Tailspin in 2022. In 2018, a memorial plaque was erected in the forest near Psych, with Moran's name and the names of his fallen crewmates. 6 of his 9 children attended the ceremony. They met townspeople who had seen the tail fall. They met the grandson of one of the Serbian doctors who had saved their father's life. Eugene Moran died on March 23, 2014, at age 90. He had lived nearly 70 years beyond a fall that should have killed him. His life was not easy, but it was full. He endured. He returned. He lived. And that was enough.